From the moment of their birth, many people unfortunately end up living as people pleasers. Now, why this happens is because, well, a lot of people have a lot of awkward expectations, and with a lot of awkward expectations, the point is people also end up suffering because of this, because what your parents show you, what your parents do to you, most likely you will take as, something that you also have to carry on, right? No one teaches you nowadays how to bypass your own pains. Well, actually, you don't bypass pains, you actually, well, in a way you bypass them, but honestly, ultimately they have all to be transcended. Now, how can you actually bypass your pains is you simply live life as consciously as possible, because pain is something that exists as a result of a wound, right? And many of the wounds belong to family wounds, right? That's the class of wounds that most of us have, right? Family wounds, abuses, because many people have this impression that an abuse is nothing else than, sexual abuse or something like that. Many people punish their children stupidly, and, an abuse is any way, any action that makes your child feel weak, feel insignificant, feel abandoned, especially abandoned, because many people suffer from abandonment. And one of the ways abandonment is tackled is by becoming people pleasers, right? There is a huge expectation that if people do you something, you will do something in return for them, or you will pay them some of your attention. So ultimately, the point is, you know, when you are born, in most of the cases, right, when you are born, in your family, right, you're kind of a little slave, right? You always have to do as a child that which your parents say. Sooner or later, you will have to go through school, and then you become, a broader slave, right? The number of masters and mistresses that you will have to abide to, right, will simply expand. You no longer have to do whatever your parents and your grandparents and probably close relatives ask of you, right? You also have to do what other people feel, right? And many of those people may actually be just like you, right? Coming from families with different expectations, silly expectations usually, because expectations are usually nothing else than a silly aspect of unconsciousness, right? The moment you expect something, right? Well, I'm not a fan of the flow of distraction, as I call it, but it also says that, when you expect something, it's kind of like a closed box, right? You don't want to welcome anything else than that which you expect, which is kind of like closing yourself in a prison. So, how can something come to you if you are closed entirely, right? So, honestly, if we are to think even further, the point is when we go to school, people have to go through all sorts of, silly points, right? From their teachers, they have to do things the way those people want, and well, ultimately, that is definitely not the best thing ever. Why? Well, why would it be? Because the moment you have to simply abide to other people's rules, the point is, well, that's not gonna ever serve you, right? You always have to do like this, you always have to do like your parents, you always have to do like your teacher. So ultimately, you'll reach an age, and usually that the adolescence is the age of, identity crisis, because you'll reach an age in which you don't know who and what you really are, right? And as this happens, the point is, it happens mainly because you have absorbed so much and you have identified with other people's way of being, way of demands, right? Requests and such. And as you have done this, right? Ultimately, it's nothing else than this, okay? It is nothing else than you're just living bits of other people's lives because you have identified yourself with different things, different beliefs, different aspects, because that is what our life is. It is an accumulation, right? When we were born, we came as nothing. We didn't have any thoughts, ideas, emotions, beliefs and such. Those were just drilled in our head, right? And some of them we have accepted consciously, most of them unconsciously, and some of them we accepted because we thought it's, well, there is no other way, right? So as these happen to go, on and on, The point is very simple, right? Um, so family is, well, the beginning of one person's life, but ultimately it is kind of an illusion, right? There is a lot of meaning that we place into family with poems, literature, and all sorts of other things. It is the basic foundation of society, right? It is that which allows the expansion of society and of any individual. But what is basically the family? The family is nothing else than a representative of two individuals, right? A male and a female individual who will simply allow you to exist, right? They allowed your birth to happen, right? And as that happens, many people identify themselves with the fact that they have to slaver their families because, one big truth that people will fight against is that, well, if your family has created you, you have to slaver them. I've seen a lot of cases, and even in my case, it was that, the same old mindset that if they gave life to you, they are entitled to, being capable to take it away from you, right? I made you, I can kill you. This is one of the most hideous things that has, to be purged from the mindset of people, from the thinking patterns of people, because it is nothing else than a hideous aspect of unconsciousness, of ignorance, right? You don't care about your child if you believe that you are everything and they are nothing, right? And the moment you believe in this idea that, you own them, right? That is abandonment, right? When you own something, it is abandonment, right? Because that thing is trapped, right? You claim full ownership over that thing. Well, even inanimate things, they have their own existence, right? But they are inanimate things, right? They don't have emotions. Most of the children anyways in this life come because, well, people want to experience sexuality and, more or less a child can happen to be born. But in many cases, parents, or people give birth to children when they are too young and they kind of don't want the children. And they end up, like unwanted dolls, right? Because you can take a doll and put it on a shelf, but, you can't treat a child in the same way because the children are, very emotional, right? They need emotional support, they need mental support, they need some psychological support. And if parents give birth to a child and they don't want a child, well, that's gonna be a traumatic experience for the child because, well, they're gonna be lacking on so many of the things. So, points be said, how can actually a child live life vigorously, right? Happily, if everything in their existence is, well, nothing else than traumatic, right? So ultimately, the point about family is they are in the end the two people who brought you into this world, and especially your mother who went through carriage in order for any one of us to come in here, right? We owe our parents in a way for this, but parents forget that just as they have made, some great effort for us, right? We also will do the same effort for our children, right? And ultimately, there will come an age, be it that you accept it or not, in which your parents will kind of become less and less important, right? Because ultimately, you have to take care of your own children. And in this society, you can't take care of your children and handle a stressful job and also handle stressful parents as well, because that's how things are. Many people, you have to understand that they are simply broken beyond repair. Many people won't accept to be helped, right? And many people will constantly seek to fix you, right? Now, I've been saying in previous videos that fixing is nothing else than adjusting something to suit your own needs, right? Why do you think society wants to fix people? Well, society wants, people who will abide to all the things without any, power, without any discernment. And society will always teach you that you are powerless, right? Society will always teach you that you have to give your own power to them, right? And your parents may actually be a very great example of this, right? From birth, you are taught that you are powerless because you always have to do what your parents say. It is kind of the first sense of slavery, right? Because in your family, right, when you are a child, it's a slave's life. You always have to do what mom wants, what dad wants. You always become more or less a people pleaser, right? To move even further, when you go to school, it's again another slaver's life because you always have to do what teachers say. And those in most cases are also people who believe that they have full power over you, because most likely they were also traumatized by the dumb schooling system that these times have. And just teaching children things that they can also find on the internet with great ease in many cases, that is no longer a very suitable schooling system for the future, right? Children have to be taught how to learn, right? Children have to be taught to use their discernment, because schools, what they are doing, they're ruining children's discernment. They are teaching them that it is bad to use discernment, because ultimately you will start with the fear of God in your family, because most families teach their children the fear of God. And when you go to school, you will fear your teachers and you will hate upon your peers, because you're pitted into a competition, right, for marks. This is very damaging, and well, why so many people in this society are traumatized and living ignorantly, right? Because as they are living ignorantly, now the point is, as they are living ignorantly, right? The point is very simple. It is very bad, because ignorance or unconsciousness means allowing everything in life to, take hold of you. You're not assuming any responsibility to make your life better. And that is why the quality of a lot of people is lower and lower, because, well, you are taught to be of lower quality, right? Everything that is unique to you is disregarded, right? It only matters that you do what society expects you to do, and parents also exhibit such a behavior, right? You must do this, right? This must be done, right? And in many cases, parents will gladly tell you to go to work, right? They've been going through this constant lie that working your ass out, is the only way, right? But you can win different strings of income through hobbies, right? Through making use of your talents, right? So learning new skills that, anyone can actually learn several skills. But from family, you also learn a lot of things like excuses, right? Self-sabotage, right? Lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence, right? Because the male is the one who kind of has to show you how to assert yourself, right? But in many cases, the father is missing, right? Because, well, we live in a world where people are disconnected from their emotions and disconnected from who they should be, right? But, well, the thing is, society needs a lot of things changed, and the first thing that has to be changed is perception, because by controlling perception, you always control anyone. You control everyone, because perception is subjectivity, right? Perception means the way one feels and one sees things through the prism of the physical body. But in many cases, people become slaves of meaning, so they perceive things through what I call the prison, right? The prison of the body. Now, why is a family an illusion? Well, the family is just like a cocoon. You develop in there, you acquire a lot of things, you acquire a lot of beliefs, you acquire a lot of things, you become an accumulation, in many cases, of things that you like, things that you don't like, but ultimately it is something that to most people is more or less detrimental, right? Many people become people pleasers because of their family. But the point is, ultimately, they are the two people who simply brought you into this world. It doesn't mean that you have to be attached to them permanently. This is a permanent truth. You cannot deny it. If you deny it, well, you will embrace a certain level of misery, because any attachment towards something equals misery, right? Every time you are attached to something, you can't find the freedom to do whatever else you want. The moment you imprison yourself along your family, you're simply denying yourself the capability of, doing any other thing, right? That's the unfortunate case of a lot of people. But ultimately, I'm not saying disregard your parents. I'm not disregarding my parents as well. But I come from an environment in which the relationship with my parents is not necessarily the best. And honestly, it is always gonna be natural that starting from a certain age, you will distance from your parents. If you don't believe me, well, starting from the age of 18, all children will simply distance themselves more and more from their parents, because starting from the age of 18, certain karmic boundaries usually break, right? And when the 21st year of existence, of physical existence, is reached, then some karmic boundaries also break, which means that, the boundary in between you and your parents is becoming more and more weaker. It's not broken, right? It's not over, right? If, let's say, unfortunately, one of your parents dies, you will suffer from that feeling of emptiness, right? Because every person holds a certain place within us, right? And then you feel a certain aspect of emptiness when someone is no longer physically available, because, well, that happens, right? You're suddenly left with a blank space that has to be filled with something. When that happens, you kind of, or should, understand that one has to be somewhat joyous, because you don't want to feel that, blankness with misery, right? We suffer because we have created this, through Christianity mainly, this bad feeling, right? That death is something horrible, right? And we always ended up, you know, we ended up programmed, right, by our families that if someone dies, it's the most horrible thing. But look at how things go nowadays. Everything seems to go to waste more and more. It's as if the end of the world is encroaching upon us slowly and surely, right? Environmental disasters, right? All sorts of things. And, well, the point is, we believe that death is something bad. Well, someone who perishes in this world, from a certain standpoint, they have also escaped the boundaries of physicality, right? The limitedness of physicality and disease. So, this video may have gone in all sorts of ways, all different possible ways. So, well, all I'm interested in saying is it's a long quest of mine to allow people to realize that meaning is slavery, right? Their family is something important. In many cases, it can be detrimental, but it is the foundation of our mental, psychological, and emotional existence, right? It is not something that we should ignore. However, one should not end up trapped in that possibility, right? In that aspect of suffering for someone else, because ultimately many people will want you to suffer, right? Suffering and misery, well, misery loves company, and, well, suffering as well. So all this being said, this video felt a bit, all around, I know, but that's how I connect with, creation. That's how I share some of my ideas, because even if I can provide flat answers, I kind of don't want to. I want people to discern and, well, understand through what I'm saying, right? And at the same time, feel free to use their own discernment and, mind to come to certain conclusions, right? I don't want people to follow me blindly. I'm not that kind of person. So all this being said, you are appreciated. Take care of yourselves. Ferenc Board signing out.